Applicants, welcome to the most comprehensive yet concise training available anywhere online. The best training in the world for applicants to medical, dental, PA, or law school, my 4 specialty areas. I'm Dr. Ali. I also support applicants to colleges and universities. That's a separate training, so go check that out there. But if you're applying to medical, dental, PA, or law school, let's talk about how to get in. And if I'm passionate about anything, it's not only getting people in to these 4 types of schools, which is my full-time work, by the way, but it's also getting people in despite having average stats. As a former admit into one of the most competitive doctoral programs in the world at Harvard University, I know what it means to get in with average stats. I know what it takes, and I know how to craft a world-class application. But today I'm not going to talk to you as a former admit. I'm going to talk to you as an admissions expert who understands the mind of admissions, who has friends on admissions committees, who's worked for admissions companies other than my own, and who really understands the game in each of these fields. So without further ado, here's what you can expect. First and foremost, like I said, a tour inside the mind of admissions from somebody who truly understands exactly what that means, exactly how these people are thinking and evaluating your applications. And I'll provide the evidence for that as well. 3 fatal mistakes that applicants to your specific program make. The 3 best actions that admits into your program take. A turbo tour of your application cycle. And finally, I'll offer you 2 game-changing offers, and I'll provide you with a free gift at the end as well. So you're an applicant who wants to do the following. You want to feel confident in your choices and in your application, hence the avoidance of those critical mistakes. You want to avoid those mistakes and pitfalls. You want to truly stand out in your application in a way that's not corny, cliche, played out, that's truly authentic, true to you, but at the same time, allowing you to put your best foot forward to the admissions committee, to craft something that's compelling and most competitive. And again, you want to get in, period. Stats-wise, you may be average, perhaps below or above average. Story-wise, whether you know it or not, you're unique. In fact, you're extraordinary. Even if you don't know it and even if you struggle to show it, we're going to talk about how to do exactly that in this training. Listen, again, stats-wise, I was below average. I had maybe a 3.58 college GPA, I think a 3.6, I'm not exactly sure. I had a good GMAT score, but not the best in the world. I used those as my statistical profile to apply into a top 20 MBA program and again into Harvard University for my doctoral program, one of the most competitive programs in the world. I think a 3 or 4% acceptance rate the year that I applied, and I was able to secure seats in both of those programs. Telling my unique story earned me a top 20 MBA and, like I said, that fully funded doctorate. And then I started to support my siblings, their friends, cousins, their friends, and I realized something. As an editor, number one, I was filling a unique void, and I had a unique business opportunity on my hands. But more importantly, I was frustrated by seeing hundreds in my community struggle through their applications because of self-doubt, bad advice, bad writing, and a lack of support. Like me, many of these people went to underfunded public schools or schools with low standards, a low level of public education. When I got to college, I couldn't read and write like the people to my left and right, and I found myself struggling. Gratefully, I had some support from siblings, friends. I was an English major, professors, faculty helped me out, and ultimately I was able to figure it out. But I realized that many who excel in the maths, the sciences, who are on their way to become doctors and dentists, but are hitting this critical point, this juncture of having to apply into these highly competitive programs, and who can't really write that well, are going to be prevented from getting into their dream schools because they are not expert or creative writers. So ultimately, I realized hundreds more would receive rejection letters instead of acceptances if I didn't find a way to reach them. And that's what led me to found up here aliimad.com, to brand myself as the essay doc and to support over 3,000 now in getting into their dream schools and programs. The consortium, which is a family of the top 25 or so of the top 30 MBA programs, published this article about me when I launched my company. I've also been a recipient of the Vocal Fellowship, one of the most competitive fellowships in the country. Been featured in a lot of media, or radio outlets, but the success is not measured by those things. It's measured by my applicants and their success rates and what they've said. And I've had people that I've supported into college, then into med school, then into medical residency, or even dental school and dental residency. And it's just been an absolute joy doing what I do. I love what I do, but I want to share with you the key insights that and the key mindset shifts that you have to make to really put together a world-class application, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. A couple more testimonials. You can find plenty on my website. Let's keep it moving. Ultimately, I realized that it all came down to this simple formula that looks so simple on paper, but putting it into practice is where the real hard work comes in. And this simple system allowed me, like I said, to help over 3,000 others reach their dream schools, including some of the most competitive MD, JD, PA, DDS schools in the world, as well as colleges and universities, including the Ivies. And it comes down to this: knowing your story, digging really deep, sharing your story, and being okay with a lot of bad first drafts, and shaping your story in a way that's creative, compelling, strategic when you're thinking about the admissions committee and the fact that they want to take a holistic look at your application. So how does the personal statement supplement or complement the other parts of your written application? And it can't just focus on the personal statement. There's so much more. We'll get into that. Here's the big picture. Here's the bottom line. Nobody's here trying to convince you that your GPA and DAT score, or replace that with MCAT, GRE, LSAT, isn't important. Nobody's going to try to argue that your statistical profile doesn't count for a huge chunk. What I am trying to get you to move from is this idea that it's like 80% or 90% of the decision. That is factually untrue across programs. Again, I'm not denying how big it is. Look at that chunk. That's probably 40% of your application decision right there, your GPA and your test score. But the reality is that other 60% is still very much in your control. What I mean by that is, let's assume can't retake any more courses. You're done. College is done. Your GPA is what it is. You're burnt out from your test. You don't want to retake it or delay another cycle. Let's just assume all that's true for a second. You're still controlling 60% of what your application looks like, and the way you guide your letters of recommenders, and the way you craft that world-class personal statement, and the way you ensure that your activities, your experiences bring your best foot forward. All of those things go a very long way in persuading the admissions committee to ultimately vote in your favor. Look, when I tell you statistics aren't as big as you may think they are, let's look at it across programs. Although less than 50% of applicants, or a little greater, than 50% of applicants get into dental school. So for every 2 applicants, at least 1 get in to dental school. 26% of applicants with a 21 plus DAT get rejected everywhere. And 22% of applicants with a 3.75 science GPA or higher get rejected everywhere. Mind you, in the last application cycle, the average GPA for an admitted applicant into dental school was a 3.48. And yet, 3.75s are getting rejected from everywhere they apply. Why? Before we answer that, let's look at some other programs. Look at medical school. In a recent med school cycle, not that recent now, it's 2016, 12% of applicants with a perfect statistical profile, a 528 MCAT, and a 4.0 GPA got rejected everywhere they applied. I posted about this on TikTok, and somebody tried to check me and say, it's not exactly a 4.0, it's a 3.8, and it was exactly a 528. I bring receipts. This is directly from AAMC, the most reliable source we have when it comes to medical school. And in an article talking about fact or fiction, they cited this exact statistic. It says, with the highest possible MCAT and GPA combination, highest possible must mean 528, 4.0. An estimated 12% of applicants were not offered admission to any of the medical schools that they'd apply to. Why? How is that even possible? Let's keep going. Now with PA, it's much harder to find these type of statistics because the acceptance rate is already so low. Less than 1 in 3, 31% of applicants to PA school even get in. It's more competitive than medical and dental school. Meanwhile, many PA applicants with subpar GPAs and I could speak to this anecdotally and statistically, many of my PA applicants had less than 3.5 overall and science GPAs, yet were able to get into their dream schools or programs. Why? How is that possible? And then 72% of law school admissions officers in a Kaplan study that was published a few years ago, I believe in 2021, said that they rejected more applicants with high LSAT scores than in previous cycles. Why? Here's receipts for that as well. You can pause here and check that article out if you'd like. Look, here's the truth. Here's the reality. Let's call that 40%, that statistical profile, the brain part, right? That's what's said and done. And let's say that that represents the intelligence you have. The other 60%, a lot of it is the heart that you truly put in, both into your college experience and into your written application. But the reality is, you got to use your brain to bring that heart forward. You got to use your brain. You got to be strategic in terms of how you're going to present yourself in your holistic story to the admissions committee. In a sense, what I'm asking you to do is think like a marketer. That is your new role in this application cycle. In fact, when I support applicants holistically, that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking like a marketer. How am I going to best present this person in a way that is so appealing, yet authentic, yet genuine to the admissions committee, right? So we're not trying to be salesy. We're not trying to do a sales pitch. Same way when advertisements are run to us on Instagram or whatever, if it's not genuine, authentic, if we can't connect with the person or the product, we don't want to buy that thing. We don't want to identify with that thing. This is very similar. How can I tell my true story while giving admissions what they need? So let's look at the two major aspects of your application. There's the primary application. This applies to medical, dental, PA school, not exactly to law school, but law school applicants tune in anyway. This is still going to be helpful. So your primary application is your personal statement. And then you got the activity section. For law school, it would be a resume. In med school, we call it work and activities. In dental or PA school, we call it the experiences section. It's all ultimately the same with different formatting and word or character limits and things like that. But it's ultimately the same. It's a huge and hugely important component of your application. And then you got other essays, letters of recommendation, things like that that may be required. You may have a COVID-19 essay up front. That's probably going to get eliminated pretty soon. But you have like extenuating circumstance essays or diversity statements or disadvantage statements or other relevant info responses in the med school app, all types of stuff. And you have your letters of recommendation. All of those are part of your primary app. You send them out in the beginning, right? And then schools come back with their school-specific essays. Again, not necessarily for law schools, and sometimes they even give you these up front for dental school or for PA school. But nevertheless, you could look at this as a secondary phase of your application. Those school-specific essays, interviews, if relevant. Obviously, most law schools don't interview and things like that. But nevertheless, something to keep in mind. And letters of continued interest if you were waitlisted or haven't heard back from a school for a long time. The reality is there's so much you can do. There are so many touch points with a school where you could take advantage of a strategic opportunity, a thank you email, a letter of continued interest, really catering to that school or program where you can make a world of difference in your application. You got to think like a marketer. You got to be strategic. And here are the dream crushers. And here are the three biggest mistakes that admits into your program make. Number one is underutilizing that experiences section and those other essays. So people just, even if you convince them that the statistical profile isn't everything, most people still think it's just pretty much the personal statement. It's my statistical profile and the personal statement. Sure, they want to know the other things, but ultimately it's the personal statement. That is not true. Your experiences section, your work and activities section, your resume are absolutely critical. How you present yourself in those documents, when you're describing what you've done, if you don't highlight a key learning or a takeaway, if you're not showing versus telling, if you're including grammatical mistakes, you are not helping yourself get admitted into your dream programs. There's too much competition for you to take these sections lightly. And more importantly, there's so much that could be done there to really help set you apart. Similarly, underutilizing your story out of cliche. I love to tell, when I do workshops in front of dental school applicants, I tell them how whenever I used to visit my grandparents, I'd run into my grandpa's room. And he'd always lay on the floor, and he had a little mini TV. And he had a little tiny mattress on the floor that he would lay on. And this is when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And he would be so happy to see me. He had the biggest smile in the world. He would hold me by my hands and he would put his feet on my stomach and he'd raise me up and down as he was laying on the ground. And that was our little tradition, our little ritual. But every once in a while, when I would walk into his room, he would look mortified, like he saw something scary or like he didn't want to see me. And it would always shock me. I'd be so taken aback because all he ever did was pour love into me. But what was he doing in that moment? He would turn away and he would reach his hand into that cup of water and he would grab his dentures and he would put them back in. He was embarrassed to look at me or for me to see him with an empty mouth, with no teeth in it. He was afraid that it would scare me. In fact, when I did see him like that, it would scare me. I would kind of get thrown off or taken aback because I'd never seen a sight like that before. Imagine opening up with that story as my hook as an applicant to dental school, talking about how in Lebanon he didn't have access to oral health care and the generational impact that that had on my family. Now, you know how many dental applicants call me and tell me, oh, I was inspired by my grandparent, but grandparents are played out. And my advisor told me that I shouldn't discuss my grandparents because it's played out and admissions is tired of hearing those stories. Have you ever heard a story like the one I just shared? Probably not. And I guarantee you that you're not going to write it as creatively and as compellingly as I'm going to present it to the admissions committee. I just went off the riff and gave you a great hook. You can do the same exact thing with whatever your story is. It's not about coming up with this novel idea. You were scuba diving in the Red Sea and something happened just because admissions has never heard a story like that before. It's about taking the seemingly routine or common tragedies or triumphs or even the everyday things that we all experience and helping admissions connect with it in a way they haven't before. And that really is what pulls on their heartstrings. Remember, the specific is universal and show, don't tell. Those are two of the most beautiful and powerful principles in writing. So don't underutilize your story out of fear that it's too cliche. And I just showed you versus told you that right now with my example. And then the biggest one lately has been overutilizing advisors, former admits, and AI. These are three things that could help you or kill you in an application cycle. You could get the advisor that is encouraging you and building you up. Don't let that 3.5 define you. You're going to be just fine. You've worked your butt off. You're president or vice president of this and that, and you have the good clinical hours. You have those advisors. Unfortunately, they're few and far in between. Most advisors, you're never going to get in with that GPA. What are you doing discussing your Palestinian identity? You're never going to... A lot of negativity. And that's because they have hidden incentives. They're encouraged to support the cream of the crop. A lot of their pay or ability to get promoted or whatever. There's a lot of complicated politics. I'm not telling you they have bad intentions, but there are a lot of complicated things that inform the way they think about how competitive you are or whether you should apply into a particular program or whether you should go get a master's. It's crazy how many advisors tell you to go get a master's and you go talk to admissions people. They're like, don't get a master's, just retake these 2 classes. So be careful with the advice you get. Even more dangerous, because at least advisors have, some sort of framework that they think through, are people who get in and have no idea why they get in and now think they're admissions experts. If they haven't actually studied admissions, sat on an admissions committee, participated in interviews, talked to other admissions officers, how do they know what worked and what didn't work in their application cycle? I would never think that I'm an admissions expert just because I got into Harvard or got into a top 20 MBA. I had no idea why they chose me. I had to talk to people. I had to become friends with admissions officers. I had to read books about this stuff. I had to become a true expert in my field to ever think that I can say, hey, here's what you should do. Not this is what worked for me, so therefore it worked for you. I avoided this, therefore you should avoid that. I could tell you to avoid discussing your Arab identity because I avoided it, and then you avoid it and you water down your identity and you have a terrible application. You never want to be in that position. By the way, I didn't avoid talking about it. I'm just giving you an example. So be careful with that. And then finally, AI. It's kind of obvious. Listen, ChatGPT, if you feed it enough personal information, it will feed you back something that sounds personalized. I'm not underestimating the power of ChatGPT. It's getting better every single day. 5.0 is out right now. It does great things. I'm not underestimating it. However, be careful because in between all of those personal stories that it's stringing together for you, it has so many go-to sentences that only the trained eye of admissions is going to recognize. Your biggest fear is not AI detectors because those aren't even reliable yet. Most admissions committees are actually not even using AI detectors. They're using the eye test. They know what AI looks like because a lot of these people are faculty. They teach. I teach at the college level. I see thousands of essays a year from both applicants as well as my college students. I know who's using AI because AI is artificial and therefore it's predictive language and therefore it's predictable in terms of what it's going to use. It uses a lot of repetitive words and phrases and also really weird words. Who says tapestry of life experiences? Who says mosaic of life experiences? Nobody. ChatGPT says that. So you got to be super, super, super careful when you're using these things. It also just looks like it's a really good writer sometimes and actually isn't. Because then you realize that paragraphs 3 and 4 are actually the same exact thing rewritten in a different way. Why it's redundant like that? I'm actually shocked sometimes at how poor of a job it does presenting you a essay that's succinct and coherent. So trust me, guys, you think it's doing good for you a lot of times and better than you can do, but I promise you I would have rather had your authentic piece with grammar mistakes and all rather than ChatGPT that often messes up. Now let's talk about the dream boosters. Let's starting with your experiences to best know your story. Getting that work and activities list down, or even your resume if you're a law school applicant, or your experiences list as a dental or PA school applicant is so critical because it takes a lot of pressure off of you to feel like you have to tackle that all in the personal statement. Because that's not the point of the personal statement. The point of the personal statement is to answer why PA, why physician uniquely, not just why healthcare, why PA, why physician, why attorney, right? Why dentist? And to highlight the most critical experiences while you're doing that and to do it in a way that distinguishes itself from the experiences section. When you start with the experiences section and you do a really good job describing each of those activities or experiences, you take so much pressure off of yourself to have to reiterate those things or cover those things in the personal statement while also ensuring that in the personal statement, you're highlighting those key experiences in a new way, from a new vantage point, with a new story, from a new perspective. So that's super important. I highly recommend starting there. Again, number one rule of writing, show, don't tell. You could tell me you're deeply passionate about serving your community, or you could tell me how you spend your Fridays at the masjid organizing youth programs and your Saturdays at Martha's Soup Kitchen serving hot plates to the homeless. And now you've shown me that you care about serving your community without necessarily having to say it. That doesn't mean that you can't say something like about your deep passion for serving the community, but you better make sure you evidenced it. You better make sure you showed when you told. Otherwise, I don't believe you. I'm not convinced, speaking as the admissions officer. Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Show, don't tell. Lastly, rely on admissions experts, not AI or advisors, to best shape your story. The one situation where I will say I do like people feeding things into ChatGPT is if you're hearing conflicting opinions and you don't have access to somebody like me, which everybody here listening to this does have access to somebody like me. Reach out to me. I'm open to your questions anytime. Schedule a free consultation. But let's say you don't. The one time I do like you feeding something into ChatGPT is when you're hearing things from friends and advisors and you're just feeling like iffy about it and you're getting pulled in different directions and you're confused. ChatGPT can give you a more balanced perspective because it's pulling from sources all around the internet. It's reading the latest articles. And that's what I do. That's what I pride myself on, right? So I know based on my knowledge of reading all across the internet, following leading admissions people, admissions officers, supporting people in getting in, and even using tools like ChatGPT for research, I can give you that balanced perspective as to whether what your advisor or peer is telling you is balanced or not. So you want to rely on admissions experts and not on AI or advisors or former admits to make sure that you're shaping your story in the best way possible. So now let's get into my offers. Just like this is the most concise and comprehensive free training available on the internet, I also offer the world's most concise and comprehensive mini course offered on the internet. It's equipped with every secret to guarantee a competitive advantage. It'll be catered to your specific program. There are some overlapping lessons when things are the same, but for the most part, I'm diving into ATSAS, into AMCAS, into CASPA, into LSAC to really help you understand each aspect of your unique application and how to craft the best application possible, again, specific to your program. So it's everything you need and need to know: personal statement, experiences, other primary essays, LORs, secondaries, interviews, FAQs, all in bite-sized 5-minute video lessons that I've put together from scratch, templates, resources, all types of stuff in there that I've developed and honed over the years, constantly updating and making sure that it's current to your application cycle. I sold over 500 of these courses for $7.97, and for a limited time offer, it's yours for $97. Yeah, that's not a mistake. It's not a typo. Why would I do that? Because now I'm going for scale and not just a few people. Was it worth $7.97 when I was selling it? I would argue it was worth well more than that. There are courses out there that offer less for more money. It's an unbelievable value, and it's yours for $97. Or if you don't want to do it yourself, DIY, there's hiring me to support you holistically with your application, whether it's the personal statement or the entire primary plus the entire secondaries. I'm here to support you all the way from personal statement to interview and everything in between. And I'm one of the only admissions companies, if not the only admissions company in the world, that has a support from scratch service that's ethical, collaborative, ensures an authentic, creative, world-class personal statement. Most people will give you cute comments in the margins or whatever. Even my editing service is more hands-on than other editing services in the sense that I help add, delete, rewrite sentences, whatever needs to be done to ensure a world-class product. So my belief, one of the things I'm driven by is, why should you need to be a professional writer to become a dentist, doctor, lawyer, PA? It makes absolutely no sense. And yet, of course, I do understand why admissions would want to know your story and hear your passion and everything like that. But that shouldn't be getting in the way of you getting into your dream programs, which is why companies like mine exist and why I believe this is one of my main purposes in this world. So I take it from here, from scratch to submit, a world-class app guaranteed, questionnaire-driven process. My hand, your story. You might be asking or wondering, well, what are your admissions rates like? They're over 95% when people hire me holistically. They're well over 85 to 90% even when people hire me just for some of those key things like the personal statement and experiences. But the more support people hire me with, the more those percentages go up. And I'm grateful to God that I'm able to achieve acceptance rates well above 95% for those, again, that hire me holistically. So again, I've helped over 3,000 get into their dream colleges or grad programs. And for a limited time, if you reach out to me with the code Ali, you will get $100 off only for those packages, those holistic packages. The bottom line is this: you can get in. You just need the right structure, the story. You might need some application tweaks. I'm not here to sell you with false hopes or false dreams. If you have a 3.0, of course it's going to be an uphill battle. If you're below a 3.0, it's going to be even harder. You might have to retake courses. You very unlikely will need to get a master's, but it's even possible in some scenarios. There's a possibility you might have to retake that MCAT, that DAT, etc. But what I can do is help you come up with the right strategy. That's something I offer for free through my consultations, to really think through the key decisions you need to make. And of course, when application time comes around, I'm here to support you in preparing a world-class application. But you can get in. So you might be feeling like this, and like this is the admissions committee, but I'm here to help you cross that and ultimately be a victor and get into your dream school or dream program. So when I say thanks, doc, I'm talking to you. You're a future doctor, whether you're a PA or a medical doctor, or a Juris Doctorate if you're a JD, or a future dentist. I'm telling you thank you, and I am speaking your future, God willing, into existence. But here's a recap of what I'm offering. There's a DIY mini course, a done-for-you service, and since I am pre-recording this training, I am going to follow up through email with that free gift that I promised you. I'm not specifying what it is right now because I might change and update that as I get feedback from you all, but expect the free gift coming into your inbox. We could also follow up, schedule a free call. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Thank you so much for being here for this free training. I'm Dr. Ali, your essay doctor.